Happy Friday, everybody. Crossover Nerd here again. Today I'm gonna continue where I left off with reading chapter 2 of my fan fiction. And once again, my story is about a crossover between Adventure Time, Bravest Warriors, Puss in Boots, and Star versus the Forces of Evil. For now, we're still at the part where we're being introduced to events that going on at Oooh as of after the battle against the vampires, and how I this all details how I think the show could have better ended and how it should have had a potential crossover with other potential shows. Please leave a comment at the end of the video to say what you think. Here we go. So, if you remember where we left off, Dr. Gross was giving Bubblegum details of what to expect when they reach the archipelago and the human settlement, and when they come across the robot guardian created by Two Bread Tom. Soon they were joined by Finn, Marceline, Bimo, and Jake. Hey, Bubblegum, did we miss any? Wait, is that a giant robot? Finn asked excitedly, hoping it might be something to fight if he had to. As a matter of fact, yes, Dr. Gross calls it the Guardian, and if you're thinking of fighting it, Finn, you will want to be ready in case Dr. Gross's way to get past it fails. Bubblegum explained, and Dr. Gross scoffed at Bubblegum's insult by stating, there won't be a need to resort to such primitive behavior since my remote will work without fail, and the Guardian will obey me most assuredly better than your so-called gumball Guardians, which, let's face it, have the programmed personality of 5-year-olds. Finn and Bubblegum were insulted by Dr. Gross's statement and were about to retaliate until Jake and Marceline held them back till they were able to calm down. Bubblegum then began explaining what Dr. Gross told her about the islands and how they will investigate each one, and threw in her own scoffs about Back to Nature Island and Better Reality Island, which only slightly annoyed Dr. Gross, who quickly ignored Bubblegum's attempt, which annoyed the princess further. We'll start at Hub Island since Dr. Gross says Susan might be there, if she is. I mean, if she is, we can't leave her to fend for herself. If she isn't, we will at least see about some equipment for the remainder of the voyage, and if there is a way to help the humans on the other islands travel to our new home when we find it, Bubblegum explained. Finn and Jake were excited they might be able to see Susan again after so long. As they talked, Bimo recorded the discussion and the images on the table in case someone missed something or gets separated from the group on the voyage. You mentioned a woman named Minerva Mertens? Finn asked. Yes, Dr. Gross responded. She was my most trusted original second in command until she became infatuated with the island's known criminal, Martin Mertens, who managed to cloud her judgment with his criminal behavior, influencing her to chain herself to that deadbeat and adopt his familial monogram. Dr. Gross began stating with such disdain, causing Finn to become agitated as she spoke. Though I suppose she learned her lesson after that criminal stole their offspring and escaped the island, damaging the Guardian in the process, Dr. Gross continued. Their child probably turned out far worse than the father in the end, Dr. Gross finished. That happens to be me and my mom you're insulting, Finn stated in anger, causing Marceline to hold him back before he did something crazy. Is that so? Dr. Gross became intrigued, activating a function in her cybernetic eye to scan closer. You do have your mother's eyes and appearance, but are you anything like her, or are you more like your criminal father? Dr. Gross pondered, attempting to get Finn's goat as her eye retracted back into her eye socket. I'll have you know I am a hero, and if my mom was one, then I am just like her, nothing like my father, whom you have no right to say a word against either of them, Finn stated in anger. Dr. Gross raised her hands in a mocking defense gesture and stated, Tut, tut, no need to get testy. After all, I am here to help so you can't shoot the messenger, Dr. Gross stated to annoy Finn further. Easy, Finn, easy, Bubblegum said. Unfortunately, Dr. Gross is right. You can't harm her on this voyage, Bubblegum continued. But Finn tried to argue like a child. But nothing, Finn, Bubblegum interrupted. You should go to your quarters till you calm down, Bubblegum told him. But Finn was about to argue again until Bubblegum shot him an angry, annoyed look, which made him decide not to respond with what he wanted to say. Yes, Princess, Finn said instead and started to walk toward his room with Marceline, Jake, and Bimo patting him to help him calm down. Soon the ship's proximity alarm started going off. What's going on? Marceline asked. Everyone looked at the display and saw they were getting close to the Guardian. Time to see if your remote does what it's supposed to do, Doctor, Bubblegum said to Dr. Gross, who responded, A lot sooner than I expected. Very well. Once everyone got back to the bridge, Bubblegum slowed down the ship as the GPS showed the Guardian was almost right in front of them. Excuse me, I gotta take a drink of water. As the ship stopped, everyone put their helmets on and looked out the windshield to see as the ocean, which due to the toxic poison was the sickliest oozy green color they had ever seen. Soon the water began to bubble green foamy bubbles, and soon rising out of the ocean, standing almost too high for them to see, stood the Guardian, which seemed to look a little damaged by the toxins in the water. But its primary programming seemed to work, as it looked down at their vessel and was preparing to attack. But Bubblegum then opened the windshield as Dr. Gross pulled out her remote from her belt and proceeded to press a sequence of buttons that the Guardian recognized and lowered its arms to play the same sequence back in response and recognized Dr. Gross immediately. Dr. Gross then activated the megaphone function of her helmet so the Guardian would hear her and recognize her voice as she told it, Stand down, great Guardian. We mean you no harm. Mean you and the islanders no harm. We are here on a serious rescue mission and request your permission to pass. The Guardian processed what Dr. Gross was saying, but suddenly the Guardian circuits started sparking from the toxic sludge coating its body, and the Guardian then switched to attack mode and attempted to destroy their ship. Time to take some evasive action, Bubblegum said without haste as she set the ship in reverse away from the robot. The Guardian's fist then hit the water where the ship was with a loud curse splash, which created a wave to head towards the traveler's ship. But Princess Bubblegum was quick and managed to close the front windshield before the wave hit. When the wave hit, the shield that was still active kept the toxic water from damaging the vessel. Looks like your toy didn't work after all, Doctor, Bubblegum taunted, and Dr. Gross responded, Impossible! I don't understand why that didn't work. Bubblegum pondered for a moment and then stated, The Guardian's system must be corrupted by the toxic material it has been covered in for some time. They turned to the others to assess the situation. Is there a chance we can outmaneuver it? Finn asked. Dr. Grosser responded, Negative. It's programmed to have extra quick sensors and reflexes for any moving target. Everyone stared at her with anger. It seemed logical at the time, Dr. Gross responded defensively. The proximity alert sounded indicating the Guardian was marching towards them, gearing up for another attack. What should we do, Bonnie? Marceline asked in concern. The princess thought for a moment and said, If we can't evade it and we can't convince it we aren't a threat, then we have to fight it and shut it down. Or it could try attacking the islanders if they tried to leave after we do. Everyone prepared to battle. Finn drew his fin sword. Jake made spike-balled flail hands. Marceline broke out her old guitar axe. Bubblegum got out her laser guns and grabbed two big ones for her and Bimo, and a smaller one for Dr. Gross, who brushed off the smug look Bubblegum was attempting to give, which annoyed Bubblegum, who brushed off her annoyed feeling. Bubblegum then opened the roof hatch and said, "Everyone be sure to not let anything damage your suits, and use the rockets in your boots. They can be activated by clicking the heels together and watch each other's backs." Marceline flew using her power she took from the Vampire King's royal fool, so she gave her rocket boots to Bimo and wore a different pair Bubblegum made to protect her feet, while everyone else clicked their heels and suddenly they were up in the air and began attacking. Bubblegum, Dr. Gross, and Bimo began to shoot at the Guardian to distract it, while Marceline, Finn, and Jake attacked with their weapons while it was distracted. They each caused some damage to the robot, but it managed to deflect most of their attacks. It wasn't until Finn managed to stab his fin sword into the robot's good eye, which temporarily knocked it off balance long enough for the others to land more attacks. But the Guardian began to launch a barrage of arm swings that came close to hitting its assailants. Bubblegum turned to Dr. Gross and asked, "How can we beat this thing?" After it became clear outer attacks were only enraging the robot. "We need a way to take down the power core in its head, but we'll need to take the arms out first," Dr. Gross explained. Bubblegum knew then what she had to do, though she was very reluctant because of what happened years previously. But she knew she had no other option, and after calculating the exact ingredient molecules she needed, she then launched 6 balls of taffy from her hands through openings she installed in her gloves and managed to hit the Guardian's right arm exactly right, so it was stuck to the lower right side of its body. The others saw and realized what Bubblegum was trying to do, and Marceline, Finn, and Jake started to draw the Guardian's left arm to a perfect point on its left side so Bubblegum could hit it again. But the robot was even more annoyed and flailed its left arm around and managed to knock Marceline back. "Mercy!" Finn shouted as she started to fall. "I got it, bro. Take that thing down," Jake said as he flew and managed to make catcher's mitts hands and caught her. Finn became annoyed by what the robot did to one of his best friends, and as he flew back to attack the Guardian with his sword, he suddenly felt sparks coming from his left arm and stopped to see little sparks of light come from his fingers. He was so distracted by this he didn't realize how close he was to the Guardian's arm until Bubblegum shouted at him in the earpiece in his helmet, "Finn, watch out!" He finally looked up in time to see the arm come down towards him, and without thinking about flying out of the way, instead tried to block the blow with his open left hand and his sword in his right hand. As the Guardian's arm came down, it suddenly felt its remaining usable arm get sliced off at the elbow point by something. Bubblegum, Dr. Gross, and Bimo could see it was a strange beam of light that at first they didn't see where it was coming till Bubblegum used the light shade visor mask function in her helmet to get a clear vision and saw something she wasn't totally able to believe, and then asked, "Finn, how are you doing that?" When Marceline came to, she and Jake both saw what Bubblegum was talking about. "Doing what?" Finn asked, because he couldn't see at first till he moved his sword from his vision and saw that from his left hand he was shooting a straight beam of light. A straight beam of light. "What the blob?" he asked, and suddenly the beam disappeared, and everyone could see that the top half of the Guardian's left arm was no longer attached to the robot. It was instead floating in the water. "Finn, can you do that again, but this time aim for the head to take out the Guardian's brain?" Dr. Gross asked. Finn tried for a moment but couldn't get the beam to come back from his hand. Not even the sparks he saw earlier. He tried repeatedly and finally said, I can't get it to come back. I have no idea how I even did that. Don't worry about it, Bubblegum finally said. You guys start heading back over here. We'll take out the brain. She continued as she, Bimo, and Dr. Gross readied their laser guns, now having a clear shot, and them blasted right through the Guardian's cracked eyes and hit the brain successfully, which then caused an explosion, destroying the whole head of the robot. They all got back into the ship and backed up another couple of feet as the Guardian's husk of a body came down into the toxic surf from which it came. After making sure to avoid another wave from hitting the ship, they watched as the once proud Guardian's body sank and continued. They were now 15 kilometers from Hub Island, but were baffled by what had occurred when Finn faced the Guardian, and were in Bubblegum's lab with both Bubblegum and Dr. Gross running tests on Finn. So anybody got an explanation for Finn's light show back there? Marceline finally broke the silence and asked what everyone else was thinking. We should know in a minute, Bubblegum responded, but was not certain herself since an answer could not be found back at her home lab. Excuse me. Soon her scanner printed up the results, and Bubblegum and Dr. Gross looked them over with surprised looks on both their faces. Well, give it to me straight, Dr. B and G, Finn said. Am I on death's doorstep? He asked. Yeah, is my bro going to burst? Jake asked also. Is our Finn not long for this world? Bimo also demanded an answer. Now, no need for such dramatics, Dr. Gross spoke. Agreed, Finn is still completely healthy, Bubblegum said, then continued to say, however, with these new results, as opposed to last night's test back home, it seems whatever it was that made up the Citadel guards mutated your DNA. Wait, mutated how? Finn asked. Well, I'm not exactly certain, though somehow you are able to withstand intensely hot environments, Bubblegum continued. Given that you were able to walk through the Fire Kingdom wing back at the castle, the fact that you had a super fever after you both and Sweet Pea came back from the Citadel, and what we just witnessed, you can somehow project beams of light from your hands. Something either in your DNA or something provided from the drop of Citadel guard's blood you came into contact with has given you a sort of new mutation that is specifically related to light. Though why light I cannot figure out, Bubblegum finished. I agree, Dr. Gross voiced in her opinion next. I have experimented with many forms of nature, but even something like this is new to me as well. It is almost as if you now possess the power of a star or sun, Dr. Gross finished. Finn, Jake, Bimo, and Marceline were relieved that it was not anything serious, but were still amazed by this development. Man, Finn, just when I thought you couldn't get any cooler, you managed to still surprise me, Marceline said. Yeah, man, this is way bigger than anything I can do, Jake also said with excitement as he wagged his tail. Even Bimo could not help herself and was cheering her mechanical heart out. Yay, Finn has superpowers! Finn was excited by this news as well, but was still confused as to how it all worked. This is pretty big, Bubblegum said, but I will need to do more tests, and you, Finn, need to learn to use and control these powers, Bubblegum finished. What? Finn responded No, let me do that again. What? Finn responded as if he were still 13 years old. Come on, PB, what more do we need to know? Bubblegum looked at him with agitation on her face. What we need to know, Finn, is if these powers are potentially dangerous or not. We don't need any more problems than what we already have happening. Understand? Bubblegum said. Finn nodded, and while everyone else retired to their rooms, Finn stayed in the lab to let Bubblegum do what she did best, and also kept a close watch on Dr. Gross as she did what Bubblegum told her to do. When they finished, Finn left the lab, reattaching his metal arm, contemplating what Bubblegum had said. Part of him heard her, but another part didn't understand. So he decided to at least do one thing he agreed with her on and headed to the training bay to figure his powers out. He had a hard time figuring out how to recreate what he produced from his left hand before, but did not get much more than a small spark from his left index finger. I do not get it, Finn, Finn said in frustration to his Fin sword. When I fought the Guardian, how did I make that huge beam? Finn, Finn's doppelganger and his sword shrugged and said, maybe it was the danger of the situation and your desire to protect everyone that allowed you to tap into your new power, possibly combined with the fact that you are a reincarnation of a catalyst comet. The doppelganger finished. Oh, Glob, why didn't I think of that? Hey, how did you know about the catalyst comet thing? Finn asked himself and his doppelganger. I am you, remember? His doppelganger teased, taking enjoyment in Finn's confusion. Oh, very funny, Finn said in annoyance. Well, let's see if you're right. Finn then sheathed the Finn sword and activated the training room. He was then surrounded by drones that then took a holographic guise of different enemies Finn faced over the years, which suddenly charged at him. Finn was reluctant at the start, unsure about unsheathing the Finn sword, but he also wanted to see if it was right. And he then balled both his fists and watched as he blasted a hologram of Meow with his light power, but in blast smaller than the larger one from earlier. The hologram Meow looked at the hole in its abdomen and back at Finn. The projection faded and the drone crumbled to the ground. Schmauzow, Finn said in excitement. Soon the other drones charged him and he blasted each one. Each one looked like Meow, Tiffany, Magic Man, and the Lich King. Finn light blasted each one left and right with one hand or the other, even both. Soon the last Tiffany drone crumbled to the ground and Finn started to feel proud of himself. When he cleaned up the room and turned the simulation off for later, Finn unsheathed his Finn sword and they both smiled a silly smile at each other. As Finn was leaving the room, wiping the sweat off his face after removing his hat, he looked at his left at his right arm and realized at his left arm, I should say, pardon me, and realized it took some heat damage and immediately went back to Bubblegum's lab to tell her what he learned. This is incredible, Finn, Bubblegum said as she repaired his metal hand. How did you figure this out? She asked him. Finn responded, it wasn't really this me, princess, but it was sword me. Finn explained as he pulled out his Finn sword and his doppelganger explained what he and Finn talked about before. As he spoke, Bubblegum and Dr. Gross took notes. When he finished, Bubblegum compared her notes to the multiple tests she took on Finn prior. I can't believe I didn't see this before. That's why your blood always red more than human, Finn, Bubblegum said with excitement. What else can you tell me about the Catalyst Comet and why you didn't say anything about it before? Bubblegum asked. Could I possibly study your Finn sword, as you call it, Finn? Dr. Gross asked, looking at the sword with a look that had more mad scientist intentions to it. Finn clutched his sword to protect it. That might not be such a bad idea, but we will both study it, Bubblegum spoke out. Finn explained as best he could what he knew from the previous Catalyst comet he spoke 2 years back. He then explained what he knew about his sword, as did the sword as well. So that purple comet that came all those years ago was like the ones that came before, except after meeting you, it took the shape of a purple sphere with 3 eyes, claiming it was an old god, um, was an old god-like being, and when you wouldn't go with it into space, your father went instead, Finn? Bubblegum asked, while questioning the claim being made the the claim being made to Finn. Uh, excuse me, a typo I didn't realize I made. Questioning the claim made by Finn. No, No, my mistake. Shit, I did that wrong again. While questioning the claim that being made to Finn, pretty much, Finn said. Bubblegum pondered this for a moment. I think I need to call Simon to see what he or Gunther can fill in about that. You go rest, Finn, Bubblegum finished. Finn nodded, grabbed his Finn sword, and went back to his room where he had an important call he needed to make as well. As soon as he closed his door, Finn pulled out a purple communication crystal, and soon the holographic image of his fiancée appeared in front of him. Hey, Phoebe, he said with excitement at the sight of the love of his life. Hey, Finn, Flame Princess said with the same enthusiasm. How's the journey so far? She asked. You won't believe what's happened so far, Finn said with excitement as Finn told her about what happened. Flame Princess listened with so much excitement in her eyes. You have light powers now, Finn? No way! Flame Princess said in excitement. I know, right? Finn said. As they continued talking, Bubblegum was making her call as well. So that's all you really know, Gunther? Bubblegum asked the little dinosaur. Sorry, Princess Bubblegum. All I remember about the first Catalyst Comet is just that. Master Evergreen was trying to stop it from hitting the Earth all those years ago, but after I put the crown on, everything went bright sickly green, and then boom! Bubblegum looked over what Gunther said. That's okay, Gunther, she told him. It's as perfect a start as any, she continued. What does catalyst mean, anyway? Gunther asked. Typically, catalyst refers to a person or thing that precipitates an event, Dr. Gross explained. Thank you, Thank you, Dr. Gross, Bubblegum said in annoyance. Did you ever get a look at the first comet, Gunther? Bubblegum asked. Gunther thought for a moment. Yeah, Gunther said finally. It had some flames jutting out the sides of its face that twisted a little like goat horns, Gunther continued. Kinda like the Lich? Bubblegum asked. Gunther gave a nod. Simon then spoke. Since that was a million years ago, that must have given time for the Lich's magic to incubate until the Great Mushroom War. They were silent for a moment. Quack. Gunter broke the silence. What's that, Gunter? Simon asked. Quack, quack. Gunter continued. Slow down, Gunter. Tell the princess as well, Simon told the quacking penguin as he lifted him up to the projection. What's he saying? You know I don't speak penguin, Simon, Bubblegum said. Sorry, Bubblegum, Simon said, then translated what Gunter was saying. What Gunter is saying is that 1,000 years ago, before the Great Mushroom War, a second catalyst comet appeared, but this one was yellow like Jake. Bubblegum was silent for a moment. How does Gunter know that? Bubblegum asked with concern. Simon explained how Gunter was once Orgalorg, the absorber of worlds, and how when the comet fell to Earth, he fell too after trying to absorb the comet, but being shot down by the king of Mars, his right-hand man, and became the lovable penguin we all know and love. Then could the comet represent Jake? Bubblegum asked. Simon and Gunther shrugged at the question. That leaves the blue comet that sired Finn's previous lives, including Shoko, and then the last comet that never hit Earth, Bubblegum pointed out. This left them all with more questions than answers. However, their conversation was then interrupted by the ship's proximity alert. That's the autopilot alarm I set for when we get close to Hub Island, Bubblegum explained. Good luck, Princess Bubblegum, Simon said. Give Marceline a hug for me? Simon asked. Bubblegum nodded, then hung up. Finn heard the alarm and said his loving goodbye to Flame Princess and made his way to the cockpit. Sorry to cut it short, but that's where I'll leave this video for today. In the next 2 weeks, I'll start reading Chapter 3. Hope you all enjoy this video. Have a good weekend and a good week. Bye.